Welcome to another edition of Unvarnished. I am so excited today because we have someone else who is a big Red Sox fan. Yeah, just like that. So he is from outside Boston. That's right, Boston. And his name is Bill Farquharson. Bill has sold graphic arts his entire life. He started in business forms and he moved into digital print before he became an exceptional sales trainer. And here is our unvarnished interview. One of the reasons that I kind of reached out to you was, I think we mentioned it on a phone call, is that you had put on a presentation in 2008, San Diego, D-Scoop, and it was titled "How to Fail Miserably at Digital and VDP." And I really wanted to know if, in the 13 years, if I'm doing the math correctly, if anything has changed.
I doubt much of it has changed. I still hear myself saying things that I've said for years. And Darren, I see your head nodding in agreement. Some of the things that I learned in 1982, 39 years ago, are absolutely true. The solve the problem, earn the order. If somebody walks in and says, let me give you a price on something, that still gets done. I still have to talk about understanding someone's business needs. A lot of those same mistakes, Chris, are around. There's a lack of training with salespeople. Digital printing is a wonderful tool in the toolbox. But if you're just bidding, then you're going to get what you get. If you can solve a problem using a digital print solution, you're going to get a loyal customer. You're going to get a profitable sale. You're going to move from the quote stage of the job to the design stage of the job. You're going to move up to the cool table. Remember the cool table in high school?
I wasn't sitting there.
No, I've never met anybody who was. But that's the thing. You get that phone call where someone says, "Hey, Chris, we've got a product launch coming up, and I understand you've got some great innovative solutions. Can you come in and talk to us about it?" That's how you sell this stuff. And that mistake was being made. What's changed, though, is the need for marketing. I say this 3 times a week. Marketing is the new sales. You have to be a master of LinkedIn. You have to tell stories because you want someone to call you up and say, "I saw that piece, and if you solve that problem for someone else, then I've got that problem as well." And that's what I've tried to do with my business, including my new Sales Vault. It's like, you've got sales challenges, I've got the answers. Look. So we have live events, live courses in this Sales Vault, and by far, those are the ones that take off. Back a few months ago, I did a couple of interviews of my own. One was with Stephanie Irwin from Alpha Graphics. She's a sales rep in Texas, and she has done a bunch of videos. And I interviewed Michael Canino, who is a Konica Minolta rep. And here's a guy who just walked outside of the building. He stuck his iPhone in the air and did a video and got 2,700 hits in 3 weeks. And he was stunned at this. Unpolished. It was unscripted. He crushed it. And, that's the thing. There's a couple of individuals who are marketing themselves, saying, "Look at what I have done for others." If it's posting, like Stephanie will post something on LinkedIn that says, "Here's a job that we did for someone else." Now, that's kind of brave when you think about it, because you're saying, "Here's my customer. Here's the solution that I came up with." You're alerting your competition, but that is what you need to do. Because if your relationship with that customer is that weak that someone else can call and say, "I give you a better price," and they go that way, you're going to lose it anyway. You're not telling anybody anything they don't already know. But yes, you have to have an individual marketing strategy as well as the company marketing strategy. What the company should be doing is they should be handling the front end with lead gen. They should be building that brand so that people are calling the company. And then on the back end, they should be handling the job once it's entered. So that leaves the sales rep in the middle to do the selling. And that's new. That's one thing that has changed since '08, is that the company needs to do more than they've done before in order to help make their salespeople successful.
That leads me to a question about that distinction between what the company does and what the individual does, because I've seen companies approach it a whole bunch of different ways, where they just say, well, we have a sales force to do that. But then others that say, well, we don't want the sales force to have that much power with their own personalities, with their own branding. We want to rein them in and just use our branding. So there's like finding that balance between, the strong company brand and the strong individual brand. Like, how have you seen that as well? And how do you counsel people on that?
Ideally, you have a theme that the company portrays that the sales rep builds off of. The company is out there saying, let's say our brand is solutions, then the sales rep can say, well, I'm a solutions-based sales rep. Let me show you how. I'm not saying you should go rogue. You should definitely run it by someone. But in a perfect world, it is orchestrated by the company, that they are saying, we just sent out a video. We just created a video sales team. Here's how to push it out. Here's what you need to do, and be very specific, ideally.
Okay. It was hard before to get in touch with customers and prospects. Now with the work at home solution, what are your recommendations to get in touch with people?
That's a great question. The number one issue by far, how do I get in touch with someone? I can't find anybody. Nobody's returning phone calls. I feel as though I'm shouting into the abyss. That's number one. The hybrid work means that it's like everyone it's like all buyers, all decision makers entered the witness protection program, and we're the mafia. We're looking for them. I need to do a hit on a buyer. How do I do that? That's number one by far, Darren. I think that there's a lot of time management issues. How do I balance? Because I've worked from home since 1982. This is my 40th year working from home. So basically, I've been preparing for COVID for 4 decades. I kept telling people, it's coming. I'm telling you, it's coming. So this is second nature to me. There was nothing that was different. I just didn't get on airplanes, but everything else was the same. But for lots of others, I've got dogs and I've got kids and I've got distractions. And that was a big issue as well. There's a lot of issues of getting ghosted. This is probably number 3, that someone will say, I gave someone a price and they disappeared. And what do I do? How hard do I push? That's number 3. So I'd say there's your top 3. I would probably come up with a couple more, but I have to think about it a little bit. But yeah, it's a wonderful chance. Those are really fun because everybody comes to that with a sales challenge, and you get my input, but you also get the input of your peers. Because I figure this way, every problem you're having in sales has been solved by somebody else. And everything that happens to you in sales will happen again. So you need to have a strategy of how to get out of this situation, whether it's I'm in the doldrums or I'm crazy busy or whatever the deal is. This is going to happen again. So you better figure it out, because sales karma will bring it right back at you. So
that leads me to sort of a leading question that came out of reading your book, and that was discipline. How much of this is consistency and discipline?
Sure. And I really think that a lot of that has to do with accountability. You mentioned the book. I wrote a book called The 25 Best Sales Tips Ever. And there's 2 versions. There's a print version, there's a signage version. And I wrote this with Catherine Monson's help. Catherine Monson, who's the president and CEO of Fast Signs, and a lovely, wonderful, incredible woman and a dear friend. So she and I met up in Arizona years ago, and we were talking about, what are you going to do this summer? And I said, I got a book. She said, no kidding. I want to write a book as well. So we would hold each other accountable. Because, you say to someone, I'm going to do this. But if I said to Catherine, I'm going to do this by the 15th when we talk again, it's going to get done. I'm going to do it because I've nothing but the highest respect for Catherine, and I don't want to let her down. Accountability. Sales comes down to 4 basics. You make a high value, well-researched sales call to the right target market, applying a prospecting process with diligence. And there's the discipline. So you get it set up. There's more information publicly available. We used to go to the library to do our research. Anything 18 months old or newer was current. And now you can sit outside a building, grab your iPhone, scan, oh, this is what they have coming up, and there's your call. Boom. Like that. That's a cool thing about being 60 years old, by the way, guys, is that I come from a pre-internet era. So I remember when you went home and you had no phone and you were gone. I remember stuff like that. So the fact that we can do what we can do with all this technology is remarkable.
Your sales tips are applicable to any industry. Why do you love the print industry?
I wish I had this great story of my grandfather starting a print shop, and I'd sit there on his knee and hear long stories about how they invented ink. I don't have that story. This is what happened. So my older brother, Andy, who is my hero, Andy was in the business forms industry. He worked for a company called Uarco. And Andy is 8 years older than I am, just retired about 6 months ago. And so Andy and I was in high school. So I went down to visit him, and he had just started. And he said, hey, come here, I want to show you something. And he reaches into his pocket and he pulls out this wad of cash. Now, to this day, he swears it was about $60. All right. But we didn't come from money. My dad was a native Jamaican. He came literally on a banana boat through Ellis Island. So Andy was at this cash. He said, oh my God, what is that? Where did you get that? You know, Andy's, we're both whispering like a couple of idiots. He said, this is my commission. I said, that's what you can make in sales? I applied to one job and I got a job at Uarco. And I was there from age 21 to age 25. And then I went out and I decided to do it myself. I just went from one thing to another to another. Then one day I am sitting waiting for a friend of mine to get out of a meeting so I can take him to lunch. I'm reading the Wall Street Journal and I'm reading about this thing called the Docutech. I'm reading about this thing called on-demand printing. Front page. I'm looking at it going, oh my God, this is the future. And so I just followed my nose. The thing I love about this industry, to answer your question, where else can you understand a client's challenges and needs, come up with a solution, and see your idea become reality? Hey, this is what we're trying to do. Well, I've got a great idea. Let's do this. Okay. And then you go make it. And then you follow up and you say, how did it go? And they say, the response rate we got. We were the most popular trade show booth in the entire conference hall. And that's a sense of accomplishment. I love that.
Are the young people in this industry attacking the challenge of selling print in the same way that you did?
I tell them things when I first work with them. I say things like, guys, this is insanely hard. It's very, very difficult. And there's a quote that sits at the bottom of my email. It's from a movie, A League of Their Own. When Gina Davis comes back from the all-women's baseball team, she says to Tom Hanks, the manager, I quit. It just got to be too hard. And Tom Hanks leans in and says 3 lines that gave me the goosebumps. And I put them on the email signature. He said, it's supposed to be hard. If it wasn't hard, everyone would do it. The hard is what makes it great. And you ask any veteran, successful sales rep their story, and they're going to say some version of, if I had known how hard it was, I might not have done it. Thank God I was too stupid. I was just terrified of failure, or I had some other motivating factor. It's a movement that you have to make from, let me give you a price on that, to tell me about your business needs. I saw something on your website. And when you make that shift, then you get into the consultative sell, the problem solving, the fun part. But until then, you're basically an app that drives, going around saying, what do you need? Let me give you a price. And your company didn't hire you for that. Plus, it's not fun. So there's the shift that has to happen. Somebody can make that shift. You're going to have a blast in this industry.
Of the people that choose wicked bad to work with you, Is there a common thing that they're looking for from you?
So there's different levels at which I can engage with someone. And there's the free level. You just want to listen to the sales tips every week. That's fine. I've got tons of people that do that. And it's fun because they become friends. The private coaching is the stuff that if people really want it wicked bad, as we say in Boston, that's the most expensive. And I put the bar way up here. And I said, if you really want it bad, if you really want success, I can get you there. I will absolutely guarantee the success. I will guarantee that you are investing wisely, but you need to want it. So this is typically for people in two different categories. One is they're just starting out and the manager wants to know quickly whether or not they're going to make it so that they're not dropping $50,000, $60,000, finding out in a year what I could have told them in a few weeks. The other category are legacy sales reps who have lost a big account and haven't done prospecting in years. That's the call I get at 10 o'clock on a Saturday night. They're terrified. And I get it. I'm terrified for them. So what are they getting? There's a hell of a lot of motivation. That's the common denominator.
You make so much of your content personal. You bring so many personal stories into what you do. And I think there is a reluctance for print salespeople or just salespeople in general, or even business people in general, to be that personal, to share personal stories and anecdotes in a professional setting. What's your stance on that? I mean, obviously I know what your personal stance is, but how do you get people to overcome that reluctance to bring humanness or personality to what they do?
I remember watching an interview with on Good Morning America with two guys, Chuck Jones and Fritz Freeling. Those names sound familiar? I bet you've seen those names 100 times. You know who they are, Chris, you know. They created Looney Tunes, right? And the interviewer said, I've always wanted to know this. Did you write your material? Did you write the Bugs Bunny cartoons, etc., for children or for adults? And they looked at each other and looked back and they said, neither. We wrote it for ourselves. This is stuff that we thought was funny. I think Monty Python is the same way. I think those guys just sat around the room and laughed and laughed and laughed and wrote stuff down, and they didn't give a rat's ass whether you thought it was funny or not. They thought it was funny. And the thing is that the way I wrote that book was very personal. I talk about the fact that I went through depression. I talk in my most recent column. I talk about having AFib. And, I talk about my girls. I talk about my girls to the point where people will meet them and say, you have to be Emma. You've got to be Madeline. You must be Katie. And the girls just roll their eyes. It's so embarrassing. But I do that because it's just who I am. The best part of this, when a client becomes a friend, does it get any better than that? When you've crossed that line, when you are so involved in their lives like that, but you've got to be that person. Be authentic is what Dale Carnegie demands. He says, keep it about them. The best book on sales ever written, How to Win Friends and Influence People, has nothing to do with sales. It's not a sales book. But it talks about being authentic. And this is authentically who I am. My kids are my favorite subject. I think you need to be authentic. If you're private, be private. But be curious about people, become a good listener and share that part of yourself. I don't think there's a downside, except when you overshare, which I do. And when you talk about variable data printing, it was simple to talk about a man with 3 daughters and tell those stories. The interesting thing is, when I first started giving presentations, I was down in Connecticut somewhere, Long Island or something, and one of the big mucky mucks from Xerox walked over to me, and I was brand new at this. I was about 31 years old. He said, can I give you a piece of advice? I said, sure, I'd love it. I'd love some feedback. He said, kill the stories. No one cares about your kids. And just then, someone leaned into our conversation and said, excuse me, guys, I get you're talking. Bill, I got to tell you, I've never understood variable data. Your story about your girls versus having no boys crystallized it. Thank you. I'm sorry, sir. You were saying... True story. My brother gave me great advice. My brother Andy gave me the best advice. Like I said, he's my sales hero. And he said, find something that you love to do, because work is what's going to take up the most time in your life. And if you don't love it, why are you doing it? So if you're not having fun at this, quit. Go find something else and have fun at that.
Well, you are clearly having fun. And I appreciate seeing it.
Well, thanks.
So I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today.
My pleasure. This was a lot of fun. It's always it's like improv. You never know the questions. You're not, it's not a presentation. It's not a PowerPoint presentation. It's like when people say, "Are you still giving speeches?" I'll say, "Yeah." The trick is to get me to stop. People pay a fortune for that.
Okay. Last question I have. So, if people wanted to visit your stuff, how the heck do you spell Farquharson?
Farquharson?
Yes.
Fruzengalaja? Yeah, there's an H you wouldn't expect. So, Farquharson, good Scottish name, son of Farquhar. Farquharson. BillFarquharson.com. SalesVaultInsider.com. Another one. Do your best, spell it any way you can. You'll find me. You'll get there.
Excellent.
You'll get there.
Thank you, Google. Now, if you were really paying attention during this episode, you'll notice some Easter eggs, or some mess-ups, as I'd like to call them. And that is the fact that I now have some facial hair and some really long hair up here. So, what happened is I had to record the introduction and one of the questions. Hey, hope you enjoyed it. Hope you noticed. See you on the next episode of Unvarnished.